all the new kids that come in and talk to me, they're like, what can I do? I said, go learn our market, learn underwriting, because when you learn underwriting, you're a better investor relations person, right? That sophisticated investor, or even a newer investor, they don't know anything. And by understanding the deal and the language, you can communicate better and show them, one, your competence. And then that gives them confidence in you to be able to say, okay, I like Mike. I like what he's saying. I understand that.
Are you about to start a podcast or producing a podcast and tired of doing the editing yourself? We have produced over 1,000 daily shows, and the production team that I've created, they're now available to produce shows for you as well. We can do as little or as much as you need, from finding and communicating with guests, preparing introductions, to editing the audio and video. You will sound better, have a more professional presence, and be able to spend your time doing other valuable tasks on your business. Let me know you're interested by emailing me directly at whitney@lifebridgecapital.com. This is your daily real estate syndication show. I'm your host, Whitney Sewell. Today, our guest, and he underwrote 800 deals before getting to the first one. He goes into the amount of hustle it takes. There's numerous things about his story that I hope just motivate you, that should encourage you, but go make it happen, right? And don't expect it to happen, the first time, the first try, right? He did not quit, and he has numerous examples of that. His name is Mike Angelo, and he founded NK Development Group with the desire to help others find the path to financial freedom through multifamily real estate. For the last 2 decades, Mike has had roles in executive leadership, technical support, and strategic sales for 2 multi-billion-dollar organizations in the construction supply business. He currently holds fractional partnership interest in 437 multifamily units in the Southwest. And Mike started as an LP, started investing, learning as a passive investor. And you know what? He had been thinking about doing this, but then he talks about how his position in this other role got eliminated. He didn't have any choice but to go make it happen. And we're going to talk about that, talk about his team, how he built his team around, he knew he had to have all these expertise in this to make this business happen, but he didn't have time to go become an expert in all those things. But then he underwrote 800 deals. I'm just so impressed at the level of hustle that he exhibits. And I hope that you see that and are motivated by his story. Mike, welcome to the show. I'm looking forward to this conversation. I know you and I have interacted on many different facets over the last few years, and I'm grateful to just see this happen. Actually, I have you on, and I know you have had many roles in executive leadership and technical support and strategic sales, all these things. And I think your intro had said for 2 multi-billion-dollar organizations in the construction supply business. And I think, wow, those skill sets are pretty useful in our business, right? Many of those things that I'm sure you learned in those roles. So I'm looking forward to getting into that today. Give the listeners a little more about who Mike is, and let's dive in.
Whitney, thank you so much for being on the show. This is awesome. An honor. And like I mentioned earlier, I've been listening to you for about 2 years. And I was like, one of these days, I'm going to get on this show. So today's the day. It's been great. My background, 20 years plus in construction supply and B2B sales. So calling on contractors and selling products essentially, and then moved into leadership. And all of those roles, I think back to basically the 2 big companies that I worked for, they really taught me what I needed to do when I went off on my own. And I had been looking for ways to exit the corporate world for a while, and I just really didn't know what it was and how to do it. And funny enough, a good plug for your show, but I started listening to your show and I was like, I can buy apartments, and what? This was mind blowing. And so I came home and told my wife, and I'm like, hey, one of these days we're going to figure out how to do this. And that day came right at the end of 2019 and jumped in full time. So a lot of folks kind of do the bridge and do, double time. And my position was eliminated at my second corporate role. And so I had a severance package and some savings and nothing but time. And so I kind of worked through multifamily syndication. That's what I want to do. And I don't think I even knew the word syndication June of 2019. And we're doing our 4th one now. So, it's been pretty cool. It's been a great journey.
Congratulations. That is awesome. I'm sure your wife said, stop listening to that podcast.
That's right. She's like, what are you doing now? So she's been a great support, but it's been a heck of a journey, and it's been a lot of fun. And I do honestly, your show has kept me engaged to listen to all the different ideas. And I probably reached out to every person you've had on your show, by the way.
That's awesome.
related to multifamily. And
that's great.
And most of them almost all of them have replied back and given me tips. And it's great space to be in, a really awesome community.
That is incredible. And I would just encourage listeners to listen to that. If you have not taken advantage of reaching out to guests on shows that you listen to, I did that, and I'll sneak this in here right now. Probably like 5 years ago, I was listening to a podcast. I didn't have a clue what syndication was really at that time. I was doing small multifamily, and I heard Vinny Chopra on a podcast. And guess what? He put his phone number out, and I thought, well, okay. I texted him and said, hey, I'd love to talk to you. I mean, like 2 weeks later, he called me or something. We finally connected, and I just thought, okay, who is this guy? And anyway, he become a friend, right? And we help each other now and all kinds of stuff. So
absolutely,
it's just reach out, right? I put my phone number and email out at the end of most podcasts when I'm interviewed, and very few people, will take advantage of that. So I try to help the ones that do, though. I appreciate you saying that and sharing that, because that is, man, it's a way to quickly build your network, right?
Absolutely. You never know. You just really never know how they can help you and connect you. And that's been, I think that you talked about, what's a superpower? That's like, hey, just take action. What's the worst that can happen, right? So you got a 50-50 shot. So
that's right. So your position, you said, was eliminated. I mean, like, you pretty much had no choice, right? Thankfully, I think you had been like thinking about this real estate stuff and maybe, moving in maybe that direction. And so you just pretty much got pushed, right? In a big way.
In a great way. It was the best day, honestly. There was writing on the wall, so I knew it was coming. So it wasn't a shock. And we had financially planned and prepared for whatever that day could come. But I didn't know if it was going to be multifamily. I took like the month of December off, and I was like, hey, honey, I'm going to buy a pool business. I'm going to start a laundromat. I'm going to do all these other crazy things. And she's like, just pick something. And I also had 4 corporate interviews lined up that I never went to. To basically do the same job. And I think my body was like freaking out about going back to the corporate world. I said, this is the window I have. And if I go back to another role, then I'll never do this. Yeah. And so that was the great push that I needed to get in there and take the risk.
I've heard so many stories where people, lose their job or, something like that. Right. And it's like, man, it's now or never. It sounds like, man, you took advantage of that and you did well. Listen, tell me if the first couple steps maybe you took that the listener could take as well as they're plunged into real estate potentially.
Yeah. So I knew nothing about multifamily at all. I knew real estate. I flipped some houses in the pre-recession, and those were a disaster. One was good. A bunch of them were bad. And my wife is still angry about those. But I knew nothing about it. So I listened to a ton of podcasts, YouTube videos. I found a education platform to join. There's, some of the big guys that are out there, invested in myself into that. And that was what I would say out of that education platform. I learned all the terminology, the vernacular. You got to know, before you just pick up the phone and call brokers, you got to kind of know what you're saying. And it's part of it is, they say fake it till you make it, to kind of give them a clue of you're not just some total newbie. So I built the vernacular. I learned to, we had, this was right before COVID. So the first couple of months of 2020, I was trying to find every networking session I could find in person here in Phoenix to just go and immerse myself. And that was my job. I didn't have anything else other than take the kids to school and make lunches. So I was, doing the dad thing at home and real estate. So that was a good 6-7 months of grinding, and, finally got in front of brokers, got deals coming in, and, they say, what do you bring to the table? So, if you need key experience to be able to be underwritten for a loan, I didn't have that. You have to have a good balance sheet to qualify for loan. Well, I didn't have that. I was trying to find deals and I could underwrite, and I was learning to underwrite. I said, okay, well, maybe that's a skill I can bring to a team. And so that's what I did. I underwrote a ton of deals, and I just reached out to other key principals to say, hey, what are you looking for? What markets are you interested in? And how can I partner with you and bring value to the table? And so that was a good 6, 7, 8 months of grinding. And I don't know, I think I underwrote like 800 deals in 2020. Yeah, a lot. I can underwrite them to sleep now, but it's not something I enjoy. It's just something I had to do because I didn't have the full liquidity to be able to go do that. And along the way, again, I found operators like yourself to say, if I want to be an operator, I should understand what it's like to go raise money and be on the LP side, the limited partner side. So I invested in a couple projects, and that was a great experience. I got to see what worked well. And then I interviewed probably 10 or 15 other operators, and I just took some best practices, call it, to see if I build my own model from scratch, what do I want it to look like?
Would you? I want to get to some key things that you said, but I wanted to ask you right there. You said you took away some best practices. Give us 2 or 3 of those that you learned. That I loved this. You don't have to say the operator, but
Sure.
I love this, and I want to do this in my business as well.
I think one of it was ease of investing, right? When you're getting ready to deploy your capital, that's a big step. And many times most folks don't have a personal relationship with that operator. They've heard them on a show, they've seen them somewhere, they read about them. And so you're trusting them. And so I think familiarity with that person is key. But then the investor portal is the biggest takeaway for me. Because you're signing these documents that you really don't know what the heck you're really looking at. And they made it easy. And so we actually adopted the same platform. And all of our investors on our last couple deals have just said, man, it's a pretty seamless process. And I said, yeah, it's because I was on your side of the table and I wanted to make it a seamless process.
Would you mind sharing the platform?
Yeah, InvestNext.
Awesome.
InvestNext.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's a
we
great
use
portal
them as well. And I think of a lot of them. They've just continued to improve. We've used them a couple of years now, and it's just getting better and better.
Yeah. Lots of good support, and they walk you through it. And I didn't know what I was doing, and so it's been really good to use that portal. And we're very happy with the feedback from our investors too.
Awesome. I love sharing things like that with the listeners, because oftentimes you're like, well, okay, you said it was great, but like, which one is it, right?
Which one is it?
And so I love that. We love InvestNext, and it's funny that you bring that up, because I'm actually interviewing one of the co-founders today as well of InvestNext.
Nice.
So that's cool. But okay, so I wanted to get to, you mentioned like there was many positions you figured out you didn't have, whether it was KP, balance sheet, all those things that you're figure out, okay, we're going to buy a multi-million-dollar building. Well, it's a little different than say buying a duplex, right? And all of a sudden, man, I mean, that could have been so crushing almost, right? It's like, well, how am I going to find these people, or how am I going to fill these roles? So let's dive into that. How did you do that? How did you get past that?
Well, so I think the education platform I mentioned, right? They kind of walk you through one, what do you need? What's your checklist of activity, right? They don't just tell you to go start calling brokers. You got to have a plan and have a team built. So we didn't have a team when I was calling all these brokers. We were working on building the team. And so, it was really a lot of swings and a lot of strikeouts again, I mentioned I reached out to as many operators as I could. And, and those guys all get blasted by a lot of people. And I'm fortunate to say people are calling me now to do the same thing. And so I'm trying to find a way to get back and help. But early in the journey, it was a lot of struggle. And I think the one thing I was able to do is to say, hey, I've put offers out in these markets. I've learned this niche market. I'm not trying to find apartments all across the United States. I'm niching down to the Southwest, specifically Arizona and New Mexico. These are the 2 big cities that I know. I spent time there. I have experience there. And this is the type of asset I'm going for. I'm not going from a $2 million to a $200 million deal. I'm $8 to $12 million. And this is the space that I think, I can bring the best value, if that's a space that they operated in too. So I was trying to figure out, what do you like to buy, so I can find a deal and send your way. And again, lots of strikeouts though. Right. But eventually I had a few guys that say, hey, yeah, we'll do a deal. Here's our bio. When you put an offer in, send this with your LOI, and that will help build credibility. And so we just did that. And like I said, I think I put 800 plus, 90 by 800 offers. I underwrote that. I probably offered 100 and 150 offers out there in 2020. And we had 1 LOI accepted.
Wow.
One.
Did you close that deal?
Yeah, we did close that deal. It took us 6 months, but we closed it. Yeah, we closed that one. We had one after another one, which we walked away from for a lot of good reasons. But yeah, we closed the first one, which was awesome. And then 2021, we closed 2 other deals, and we're getting ready to close here in about 22 weeks on our 200 unit deal. So super excited. It just took a while. It does. And this is a game of resilience and not giving up, because
it is.
Yeah.
Wow. I just think it's an amazing story, right? I mean, 800 deals, underwriting 800 deals and submitting, what'd you say, 100 plus LOIs and getting one accepted. Well, guess what? You got one accepted, right? Yeah. And you got it closed. Congratulations on just not giving up. And I just love stories like that. So you started networking, you started meeting people, you started, figuring out those team members. I guess, how did because the question I get often is like, well, I don't have any experience. I've not done a deal yet. I know I need these team members. I know, how do I get that operator to take me seriously, to give you like their bio, like you mentioned, to be able to say, hey, send this with your LOI so they'll take you more seriously. How did you build that relationship to make that happen?
I think it's proving to that operator that you do bring something to the table. Everyone is busy. And, the last things a seasoned operator is going to want to do is put their bio or their reputation at risk for somebody they don't know. So you have to figure out, again, dig deep and figure out what is the skill set. And I kind of mentioned, right? If you have capital, you can help raise money. That's one piece, much more difficult than they said, right? To actually do that. I think underwriting, all the new kids that come in and talk to me, they're like, what can I do? I said, go learn our market, learn underwriting, because when you learn underwriting, you're a better investor relations person. Right? That sophisticated investor, or even a newer investor, they don't know anything. And by understanding the deal and the language, you can communicate better and show them, one, your competence. And then that gives them confidence in you to be able to say, okay, I like Mike. I like what he's saying. I understand that. And I think that's the skill set that I focused on. And I think anyone new, it's the easiest one, by the way, right? It's not the easiest one. It's the lowest hanging fruit, lowest cost. Right. But it's not easy because it's a lot of grinding and going through the same thing. And, when that deal turns green, you're like in your spreadsheet, or depending on what tool you use, if it's green, you're like, oh man, what did I mess up? Because I've never done that. Right. And learning how to, manipulate those spreadsheets to understand the levers that you can pull. Those are very nuanced. And you can only do that if you know the markets that you're in, and are they growing markets, submarkets? Yeah, there's so many pieces to underwriting, but again, I don't love to do it. I just had to do it. And now I have folks helping me do it, which is fantastic. But
well, let's talk about that. Talk about the folks that, you mentioned folks. How did you find them? Tell us about your team. What does that look like as you're starting in this business to be able to start to scale? Because this is a team sport. We've talked about that so many times on the show. Can't stress it enough. It is so much about the people you surround yourself with. How did you do that? How did you build your team? How did you find people? Let's dive into some of that.
Sounds good. So quick story. I mentioned I had a KP that says, hey, let's partner. I met him on Bigger Pockets. And so we went after a bunch of deals. And I had a deal here in Phoenix that I was best and final in. And so that was my first deal, best and final, super excited. All of a sudden he says, hey, he was out of the Midwest. He says, hey, I can't be part of this deal. And I was like, hey man, we're in best and final. He's like, sorry, I'm out. And so I had zero partners, right? He was my KP, balance sheet experience, et cetera. And so I went on our Facebook page, which is the part of the mentorship group. And I just put out there, I said, hey, best and final, I have this 80 unit deal here in Phoenix, looking for help. And this Michael, my partner, reached out and says, hey man, I'm in Phoenix too. Let's talk and I might be able to help. And so he connected to us to another key partner that actually brokers loans. And we got on the phone and we were able to put the packet together and send it in. We didn't win that deal, but we were able to save our reputation by being able to do that. And so that fostered into our team. And so those two guys were on our first deal. And then our other partner, he was actually an investor that I think I met on Bigger Pockets or a virtual meetup. And we just talked, and we didn't actually meet until December of this year. So almost 2 years of talking and working together on Zoom. We finally met in person. So we have the core team is basically myself and two guys. And just again, through lots of communication, working on deals, the second one invested with us first, then became a KP with us. And then we've expanded out. So I mentioned all those in-person meetups here in Phoenix. I met our other few partners. One is helping me underwrite and now doing broker relations. I'm not paying them. They're working with me, and I'm actually helping him find his first deal in Oklahoma City. He's 23 years old, and he bought a 16 unit complex. And basically didn't syndicate a joint venture. I connected him with some investors and walked him through the deal. And I'm so proud of him of what he's done at such a young age. I could be his dad. I'm much, much older than him, but it's amazing to see what he's doing at again, mid 20s. So he's a fireball. And we have a few other folks that we've connected with that are on our team, and we all have common goals. And so everyone knows, and everyone has different streams of revenue. So they know that this project is coming out of the ground. It's going to take a while to get paid, compensated, but everyone has a piece of carve out for equity, but that's how we've done it, right? That's how we've done it. And I've been blessed to be around, again, really great people with better skill sets than myself.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I wanted to point out too, you mentioned, this guy backed out, who was your KP, your balance sheet, it's like, Man, I mean, that could be kind of devastating again, right? But you didn't quit there. But you had already surrounded yourself with a group, it sounded like, or a mentoring program of some kind. And I wanted to point out, because I feel like this is often a part of a mentoring program that's not valued, is the network, right? Like people do not think about like this mentee, this coach, whatever you want to call them. They spend a lot of time and effort like building, their Rolodex, right? And you're really paying to come into that, right? And
100%.
oftentimes, but it is so valuable, right? It's so valuable. I have so many people, or mentors, I would call them now, that I could reach out to and say, hey, who do you use this for? Or who do you use to do this, right? And that saves so much time, right? Being able to just go straight to the person they've already vetted or used. I mean, that's so valuable. But in this case, you needed this person who could act as that KP and have the balance sheet. And you went out there to this group that you had already become a part of and found that person, right? And that led to more things or bigger things. But because just oftentimes people say, I don't want to spend the money on a mentoring program or, those things. You're investing in yourself, right? And you're investing in things like that I think at first are hard to put a monetary value on, right? And so you did that. You met this individual through that group. Or I guess speak to that a little bit. How did you kind of vet him or to know that, hey, this is somebody that I should move forward with? Or was it like, okay, we got to do this deal potentially. Yeah. And he fits the criteria that we need. We just got to do it.
No, and so you totally hit it out of the ballpark. The education that you get out of these programs, it's not worth the price you're paying, but the network is, right? The network absolutely is. And if you just do one deal, your tuition cost is more than covered, right? But this person that I mentioned, he's helped a lot of these students out over the course of the year. So he's very well vetted, great brand in the industry. And so I knew him, but I didn't know him. And so I got connected through him by this introduction that for, again, Michael, my current partner, that was how because he was able to talk to him, right? And he's in high demand, so it was kind of hard to get a hold of him. But yeah, that's the power of the network, I would say. And they do these annual events. We just went to one here in October of last year. And now we have another group of folks that we could potentially partner with on the next scale of deals, right? So if we're everything's an evolution, right? If we're not chasing 20 unit deals, we're trying to stay in the 60 to 100 plus units. We just put an offer in on a 350 unit deal, right? That there's no way I could have thought about it. It was over $100 million to go after that. And I'm like, how am I going to do that? I need a team, and now I need a different team. And so it's been really fun to kind of go from the smaller stuff to the medium stuff. Now we're chasing institutional quality product faster than I thought we would. We pivoted and I always wanted to be in development. That's the name of our company is NK Development Group, but I didn't have any business in development. I have no experience other than I sold products to construction guys. That was the span of my experience. But we have a development company where we bought a piece of land and we're going to build apartments. But I found a developer that did that, and he liked me enough to want to partner with me and shared the vision again. And it's the same thing. Anything is possible. You have to know kind of what you want, and you're not going to know every step, but you got to move forward and figure it out along the way. And again, find experts and get them to share what they do. And if, again, you never know, they might want to just partner with you. And I think the hustle is part of why do people want to partner? You got to be able to hustle. This is not an easy game, and you can't sit back and post an ad and expect deals to flow through, right?
Yeah, I love that. You do have to be willing to hustle. I just think as an entrepreneur, that almost has to be your middle name.
That's right. That's right.
So, you have a background in construction, supply, and maybe you expect this question. I'm not sure, but I just wondered about like your thought behind the ongoing supply chain crisis, and particularly in like obviously construction materials and being able to get those things. What are your thoughts about that and what that looks like over the next 6 to 12 months?
Yeah, I don't think anyone expected it to be as bad as it is. And I'm not an economist or supply chain expert, but knowing that, we're working on a project right now, trying to get a bid for a 170 unit apartment complex. And our pricing has gone from here to here, right?
Way up, huh?
And everyone's pointing to materials. Well, materials are part of it. And we know that there's issues with, imports and production lag that COVID started, but it should get better. It should. The challenge we're not fixing yet is labor. right? The labor shortage is legitimate, but there's also a lot of folks exited, blue collar work and went to do something else, which is phenomenal for that. It's just really, I don't think anyone realized the impact of it, right? So you probably feel it at restaurants and bars, but you see it on the back. You don't see it on the back end of, hey, why does it take so long? Well, if there's less production workers, there's less product. I think that's going to be an issue, but I think it also, the construction supply space, especially raw goods like lumber, they were always very low margin product. And I think this was an opportunity for those producers to increase their margins. Not to say anything negative. I don't have any friends in that space, but I think there's an opportunity to say, hey, everything else is going up. Why don't we do the same thing? And we as the end users are the ones paying the bill, right, for that. And is that the cause of inflation? I think that's part of it, honestly. Inflation is a natural thing, but I think this was a little more artificial forcing of goods to go, hey, we have an opportunity to make some more money here. Let's do that.
Awesome.
I don't know if that's the right the approach.
Yeah,
but that was my
it's
answer.
helpful just to get your take on it, since you do have more experience in that field than any of us probably. So Mike, what about, what's been the hardest part of the syndication business or process for you just getting in, besides underwriting 800 deals to get to the first one?
I think finding the right partners, right? A lot of folks don't realize when you buy an apartment in a syndication, you're married to your investors, your GPs, which, I've seen now 4 deals from other folks fall apart because there's a disagreement. So if anyone's looking to get into the business, and you have to be able to understand who your partners are, vet them, just like your investors vet you, and understand that you're getting married for 3 to 5 years, depending on your business plan, right? Or longer, right? And that is hard to do because you kind of date, right? As you get to know each other, and you don't really know what's going to happen until something bad happens, right? When everything's good, it's just good. So I think that's the hardest thing, to be able to put some trust out there and go, okay, I feel good about this person, and then build that camaraderie to go after deals together. That's tough. Yeah,
no doubt, it is tough, and I love that. You said it's like a marriage. I mean, it is. You're together then for a number of years for sure, one way or another. What would you have done different, say on that first deal or the first couple of deals? Anything that you could say, hey, you know what? I wish I had known this.
Exactly the team piece, right? I spent too much time looking for deals without anyone to take them to. And so I should have slowed down and focused on, hey, let me build this team first. And that way we could have probably accelerated our time window. But in retrospect, I don't know if I would do it differently, Whitney. I think all the things I learned along the way, a lot of the speed bumps were good speed bumps. And if we had maybe earlier success, it could have been good, but it could have also maybe made us a little bit jaded or tunnel visioned of, hey, these are things that you're going to experience that we didn't get to feel. Some of those pains, maybe we helped ourselves not feel those pains because we didn't get too bullish into something. Or I don't have any regrets. I think it's been a great journey, and should it have been, I told my wife I need 1.5 years. It took 2 years. So yeah, she knows I always underestimate anyway. So it's
That's
good.
still a success though, right? That's incredible. Yeah. What about, do you have any predictions, Mike, just for the real estate market over the next 6 to 12 months?
It's insanely heated. I think the markets that are growing in population because of job growth are going to be more insulated to whatever changes come. I think it's going to be a global impact, whether it's currency related. I don't know. Is it going to look like 2008? It's hard to say, but we all know the asset prices are through the roof. Single family is an easy one to point at, but even in multifamily, this, it's really hard. I live in Phoenix. I can't buy a deal in Phoenix. We're building in Phoenix because the replacement cost at this point is less than buying, quote unquote value add that's 40 years old. It's at the same price point. And that's a strange place to be. So how do you do it? Our vetting process is purely, again, everyone says underwrite conservatively, but does it cash flow on day one or close to cash flowing? How do we ride the storm out? Align your debt correctly. The fixed versus variable deal. There's so much of that risk. Interest rates will probably go up, which will likely soften the market. But again, you have this artificial push to keep it down. So depends on how hard that push is, right? Do we have another 12, 18 months of runway? I hope, right? We're building apartments, so I hope so, right? But it's hard to say. Yeah. I think something will correct. I just don't know if it's going to be on that grand a scale that it was prior.
What's your best source for meeting new investors right now?
So we do a monthly meetup. It's actually tomorrow here in Phoenix, virtually and in person. And so that's been a great experience. It's kind of our way of giving back too. And we have to educate the public and some sophisticated investors too that like to join us. So that's our way of today. We're trying to figure out a way to how to scale actually. So it's a good, my partner and I talked about this yesterday. Do we do, email campaigns and SEO and all kinds of good stuff? We're not there yet. But right now I love the in-person, whether it's virtual or being able to shake someone's hand. That's how we want to grow organically. And we don't want to have 10,000 investors. We really don't. I want to know each and every one of them and have a relationship with them.
Mike, what are some daily habits that you are disciplined about that have helped you achieve this level of success?
The gym. So 5 a.m., 5:30 sometimes. If I don't work out, there's such a correlation between this business entrepreneurship and health. And I've become healthier since leaving my corporate world because I've found a way to, number one, this is a really stressful job. And so you got to find a release. And I think it's getting to the gym in the morning. And if I don't work out, I don't feel good throughout the day. I feel foggy. And, I have my coffee cup right here, but coffee doesn't do it. It's getting the heart going. That's my daily habit. I got to do that. And then the rest of the day is awesome.
What about, how do you like to give back?
Our meetup is one big one. So that's free. We charge a small entry fee, but all of those funds, it's 100% donation to a group called the Amanda Hope Foundation. It's a organization here in Phoenix that basically helps young children going through cancer treatments. They provide services and support and counseling. And so I think to date, we're probably about $3,000 in. So not a lot, but we just give every chance we can. So we promote that through our meetup. All ticket sales go through there. And then we just did a weekend. This weekend we took my daughter and a couple of our friends went and spent the day with the families, helping them. Again, we had little workstations to, it's their way of giving back and spending time with those kiddos.
Mike, appreciate you giving back in that way, but also just giving back to us today. I love your story of how, you said your position was eliminated. I mean, it's like you were pushed into this business and maybe where you may have tiptoed before, right? And it's like, hey, you have to go make it happen. And I feel like sometimes that's like the best position for us to be in, where it's like, you don't have a choice but to step out, be a little uncomfortable and work through that. And you did many things. And I just appreciate you being real, right? And transparent about these things. Hey, you found this KP or, this guy that had the balance sheet and he backs out last minute. I mean, all these things, right? 800 deals underwritten to get to one. That's just real, and you talked about the hustle and you have expressed that in so many ways of how you had to do that. And now you're looking at deals, what'd you say, that are 100 million or so. I mean, that's just like, I want the listeners to think about that. Mike didn't start there, right? Neither did we. And man, there's just such a time in the beginning where you just got to be willing to hustle like Mike's talked about. And I just appreciate your transparency around that. Tell the listeners how they can get in touch with you and learn more about you.
Absolutely. I'm my phone number. It's 909-730-5096. Text me, call me. I challenge you to do that. Again, that's the first thing I said on the show, and do that. Very few people take advantage of that. I'm on LinkedIn, just Mike Angelo. And you can email me at mike@nkdevelopmentgroup.com. Thanks, Whitney. It's good stuff.
Thank you for being a loyal listener of the show. Please subscribe and share it with your friends. We want to help you become the passive investor you've always wanted to become, but also the operator you've always wanted to become. We want to be the number one resource for your real estate investing journey. But go to lifebridgecapital.com where you can start investing in real estate today.